Next on our list is just, I mean, the one thing that we've adjusted to because of technology is learning to hunt the wind. And with technology now, with all the scent control and stuff, we get guys that come and, they have their scent lock suits and their spray and all this, and then they'll be outside wanting to smoke a cigarette. And I'm like, are you kidding me? So really it's crucial. It's hunting the wind. And what I mean by that is if we think the bedding area is to the north of us and they're coming to the south, well, then we're only going to hunt that on prevailing, whatever that's north, northwest wind, west wind, to where we're guaranteed to where when those deer come in, you're going to get a shot opportunity and not just guessing. It's not just a guessing game. So we've had it where we've not hunted for a couple of nights and said, listen, there's a big buck in there, just the wind is wrong. I use this because my son is 11 and he's 8 up with deer hunting. So we haven't hunted until Monday night. So I'll make this short. Or I should say, it was Monday night was the first time we hunted this year. And so he was like, Dad, when we hunting, I'm like, we need a cold front and we need a northwest wind. And I go, I'm going to teach you that we need to hunt smarter, not harder. And so we get in the blind, and it wasn't 30 minutes, that some does come in, and he's a really good shot. Well, anyways, long story short, he ended up shooting and missing. But I told him, I'm like, see, those deer came in, and they came in from the north, and we were on the downwind side on the south. And I said, so if the wind was out of the south, those deer maybe never blew, but we would never seen them. And just the teaching factor of that the understanding that I'll look at a trail camera picture and be like, all right, that's 3 nights in a row they came from the northwest. All right, so I need a northwest wind or west wind because my stand is on the downwind side of that. And that is where guys get mixed up. And I'll get guys like, Gano, you haven't hunted yet? No, the season started September 15th, and we didn't have the right wind to hunt. But I knew when we had the right wind, and I kind of jinxed myself because I told my wife, I'm like, oh, he's going to kill a buck tonight or no, it's a given. Well, and it came into 10 yards. He just missed, but at least he had the opportunity. Rather than even with a kid, you're taking him time after time after time and not seeing anything. We talk about confidence. That confidence is now down in the dumps because he hasn't seen anything. To where if you've conditioned him to like, listen, we may only hunt 3 times this month, but when we hunt, it's primed, and you better be ready. So
I think an important distinction here might be because people see deer and to a non-hunter, a lot of times they see them on the roadway or they see them in a suburban area, and they'll have deer look right at them and not run away. But explain the importance of scent versus sight and what that means to a deer as far as whether or not they're likely to.
Yeah, and some of that is relative to where you're hunting. Like where we're at in the Northwest, the deer maybe have it, especially like using ATVs. Farmers use diesel trucks and tractors to use in those fields. So we don't use ATVs because, excuse me, that's something foreign to them. You ride an ATV across the field, and the deer lose their mind. You take a diesel truck across the field, and they just kind of look at you like, oh, we've seen that and heard that. So in the urban areas, of course, they've seen and smelled humans, and sometimes that you don't need to do anything at all. Sometimes like where we're at, they won't lose their mind when they see you, but they're just like, we've never smelled that before. We're not sure, what that is. So,
well, I've had experiences where deer saw me, looked at me, and then but didn't move until the wind changed, and and as soon as they smelled me, they were done.
Right. Yeah.
Say it. Whatever you're looking at me, just say what.
And it happens a lot, and that does happen a lot. And here's the one thing that every hunter tells me, and they tell me, said, well, I have deer all over me. I have bucks all over me. And it's what you're looking for. And I use it as like everything in real life. If you were to have a kid come in here and you have a candy bar, you could probably convince that kid that you're gonna give him that candy bar and he's gonna eat it within 5 seconds because he's young and he sees the candy bar and is like, hey, yeah, I'll buy that candy bar for 50 cents. A guy like us walks in and is like, hey, I'll sell you this candy bar for 50 cents. And we're like, do I really need it? I don't know. Let me think about it. Probably not, because the age factor. So when guys tell me, they're like, man, I don't even worry about hunting the wind because I have deer all over me. And that goes back to, what are you after? What is your goal? If you're just after, I want to shoot a doe or I want to shoot any deer that comes in, then obviously wind plays a factor, but not as much. With anything, the more educated, the bigger the deer get. Obviously, their sixth sense comes in. They're more cautious. They're only going to come in when they feel that everything is completely safe. And those are the ones that challenge you.
That's how they got to be mature.
Exactly. And you'll see that, as in, obviously the does come in first, and then the small bucks, and at the very end, at last light, that big guy's in the back just kind of looking like, all right, everybody's all good.
He stands back. He stands back and lets everybody else.
Yes, he's like, okay, my girls are all right. These young bucks are out there. I think that I'm good. But that's the one thing guys are like, well, I was sitting in my stand with smoking a cigarette. These deers came in and I shot them. Well, true, but if that's a mature buck, that's just not going to happen.
Right.
It just doesn't happen.
Do you need a tag to hunt the wind, or?
Oh my God. All right, we'll be right back on the Gun Shop Show.
Hey there. We got your lab results back. It looks like you have a fever, and the only prescription is more Gun Shop Show.
All right, we're back on the Gun Shop Show. We're talking about 5 ways to become a better hunter with Brad Ganaway, professional hunting guide with Pro Outfitters. So we've covered 3 topics so far, right?
Yep.
Improving your scouting.
Yep.
We've talked about being in decent physical condition.
Yep.
And now we're talking about hunting the wind.
Mm-hmm.
So let's recap that so we make sure we have time to get to the other 2. Just how good is a deer's sense of smell?
It is absolutely incredible, and obviously the older they get, the more they understand how to use that wind, how to use the wind to their advantage. And it's also they understand hunting season, the photo period, the time period of the day. They know that when the days get shorter, the leaves are changing, the testosterone level goes up. They know that like now something's trying to hunt us. So yeah, I hear people say that in the summer you can walk out in your pasture and get within 100 yards of a batch or group of bucks and video them, and everybody's like, well, see, there you go. The wind don't matter. Well, it's July. They could care less about that. But when the photo period, everything starts to change and the temperature changes, the testosterone levels go up. That clicks like, all right. Now, I've been through this a couple of years. That means that guess what? Something is trying to kill me now. So everything that I've done all summer, I can't do that in the fall, or I'll end up dead.
Yeah, I'm sure there's been some science and some testing to determine just how powerful is their actual capability of physically smelling, but it's got to be many times more than a human.
It is. Yeah, I don't know what the number is, but it's actually. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, but the wind carrying scent is something that even humans with our much more limited ability can tell. Because have you ever been somewhere where all of a sudden you smell a trace of cigarette smoke and you look, and I've had it at the ball fields, someone literally 150 yards away, but if they're in line with me with the wind, I can pick up their cigarette. But yet, if they were standing 2 feet to the right with the same wind, downwind from me, I'd never even know that it was there.
Well, I can put that into, I can give you the numbers on that. A deer has 297 million olfactory scent receptors, according to bestdryingrack.com.
Wow.
Comparing that to a dog has 220 million. So they actually beat dogs, which
yes, I knew that.
Kind of surprises me. Why don't they have drug deer out there sniffing out drugs? Yeah. A human has 5 million. So that's pretty impressive numbers.
Yeah. See, were you talking about like with the cigarette? See, that's what happens when I drive by Cave Game Pizza and I smell that pizza and I'm like, oh man, I got to go eat pizza.
Yeah, see, we figured out early on that people started associating the smell of cedar with buying guns in our store because we stripped all this cedar down and lined the walls with it. But over time, and people would come in and they'd say like, oh, this is the feeling of freedom in buying a gun. Well, the wood started to have less smell. So I went and bought some cedar smelling oil, and we plugged it in the warmer. And people still walk in, and they're like, this cedar smells good, and it triggers a response in them.
There you go.
Previous episodes and more available at gunshopshow.com.